Autism is not caused by one thing, and Tylenol is not it. Leucovorin is not the solution. The internet is going mad right now, and children are getting worse already.
I didn't know what was happening, and I felt like I was just losing control of my son because of the leucovorin.
It doesn't matter whether we give them folic acid, folinic acid, or methylfolate. These undermethylated people would get dramatically worse.
It is not accurate, it is wrong, and it is bad science.
This is my child, this is my son, he's my flesh, he's my heart, he's everything to me. I will sacrifice anything to help him.
In a moment, we'll get to how leucovorin folic acid almost destroyed this woman's child. We were able to stop this in time and pull him back. But the desperation you hear in this mother's voice is exactly what the supplement salesmen use to create a craze on the internet right now, to deceive you into thinking that this is the right solution for autism. All of the different forms of folate is a risk. I'm going to blow the whistle and I'm going to tell you what causes autism and what actually changes symptoms. It's time to have high levels of discernment right now. Welcome to the Barefoot Autism Warriors podcast. I'm Ninka Bernadette Mauritsson, and my son lost all the symptoms that gave him the diagnosis in 2004. Stimming, sleepless nights, eloping, tantrums, rigidity, aggression, sensory issues, echolalia, and is now living independently without those symptoms. As a journalist and an ex-New Age autism mom saved by Jesus in 2020, I'm navigating all this, and I'm all about stopping moms just like yourself running on that hamster wheel of ineffective therapies, protocols, practitioners, deception and distractions in the mainstream and holistic world. If less symptoms, more independence, more speech, peace, God and joy is your plan, you're in the right place. It is bad. And by the way, the number one promoter of leucovorin right now better not go on interviews saying that he's opening up a factory to produce these pills for you. Now that millions of autism moms are freaking out, wanting this stuff, I certainly wouldn't suggest that. But I suggest you go and research the big names, the doctors who are recommending this, and check whether they are planning to open up a factory to sell this. While you're at it, take a look at the big companies who are producing and planning to sell this if they're not already doing so. In my country, you're not allowed to recommend a supplement that you're selling because it is unethical. Before you come after me who charge for coaching moms, I am coaching moms to become independent of me. I coach moms to make myself redundant in their lives within 12 months. I don't want them to become dependent on me or anybody else. As a mom of a child who lost all the symptoms that gave him the diagnosis, as a mom who's been through this, I know how important it is that you become the expert. In the previous episode 202, go back and check it out if you haven't listened to it yet, I spoke about the final wake-up call for autism moms. The deception and the distractions on a spiritual and biochemical level that's blocking autism turnarounds right now. And guess what? This 1 week later, the deception hit the biggest stage in the world through the MAHA movement. Most Christian holistic moms constantly chase or search for the latest trend, the latest cure, the latest remedy to help their child. Right now, what's trending is the Trump and RFK-backed autism course and solution. Tylenol, the V, the poke, and the solution being folic acid and leucovorin. We get exhausted, right, by the gaslighting and the abuse by the pediatricians and the medical industry that are part of the problem. So it feels like a revolution when a president and a politician like RFK acknowledges that there's a cause and a quotes, air quotes, natural solution. I understand more than anybody because I have been there. My child was diagnosed at 4 after going to a well visit in the doctor's office. Going downhill from there, lost him completely. 911, foaming from his mouth, turned blue, and he didn't come back until 4 years later. So it was a situation where stimming, screaming, sleepless nights, eloping, aggression, sensory issues, we were just destroyed as a family, and nobody in the mainstream system would take any responsibility. This is going to be controversial. Trigger warning. But I would not have been who I am today if it hadn't been for the poke, if it hadn't been for the injuries in the doctor's office, if it hadn't been for all the things that caused autism symptoms, I would not have woken up. I would still be fat, depressed, sad, detached from my heart, my grief, my trauma, God. I would not have been willing to change to the extent that I had to change to save my child. It took that much for me to wake up. Autism happened many years before I was pregnant, when I started detaching from my body because of trauma, abuse, no caring parents, just being alone in this world and not knowing God. So I'm just saying, maybe we need to look at what all these insults and trauma and grief through autism is here to teach and change in us. Without all these injuries and my child to fix through that, I would still be the old me, and I would not be able to help you today and reach hundreds of thousands of moms every year. This is where we need discernment. I would not have been where I'm at today, where my son is 26, live independently, have none of the symptoms that gave him the diagnosis, and the last 8 years probably has been the most impactful in his turnaround journey. And what happened is what I'm going to share with you in this podcast today. My sisters, we need to remember that this is spiritual warfare, a war for our children. It's a war against our soul, and I need to blow the whistle on this. You've already tried the therapies, remedies, the diets. You excluded gluten, you excluded dairy. You tried the herbs, the parasite cleanses, the zeolite. And yet still the same tantrums, sleepless nights, ritualistic behaviors, and feel like a prisoner in your own home. One of my clients literally thought that her child was irreversibly regressing or had pandas. Turns out it was Leucovorin, the folic acid treatment, the number one distraction that RFK is raving about.
I was, desperate. I didn't know what was happening, and I felt like I was just losing control of my son because of the Leucovorin. I didn't know who to point fingers at because I was kind of like, is it my fault? No, it's not. Is it my husband? Or I was just all over the place. I think I even blamed the school for his behavior and the things that he was doing. And then I thought, okay, maybe I'm not working enough. Maybe I'm not doing enough. So everything was getting pointed at except the Leucovorin. It wasn't until I came across your post is when it dawned on me.
It's a disaster. What happened to her? She blamed herself. She blamed her husband. She didn't know who to turn to. She thought she had lost her child. And we were on a really good trajectory before she started Leucovorin. We were able to go through her process. When I work with moms, I open their kitchen drawers and we go through everything, and I audit their case. Online, of course, we found the Leucovorin. She took it out and her son came back.
This is my child. This is my son. He's my flesh. He's my heart. He's my soul. He's everything to me. And I will sacrifice anything to help him. Thank you so much for being there and being the supportive system that I need and making me feel like that I am not alone.
I've looked at so many protocols for my autism mom clients who thought they needed another supplement or diet or protocol or remedy to stop symptoms. And turns out it's the supplements and the diets and the therapies and hidden spiritual deception making these children worse 99% of the time. It's a massive distraction spiritually and biochemically. And with these moms, the pattern is literally always the same. Your child's symptoms are caused by messages. And when you understand the message behind these symptoms, instead of killing, treating them, binding them, the symptoms change because the message has been delivered. We want to get rid of the symptoms because we want comfort. But the symptoms point towards God's plan for us. I describe the enemy's strategy this way: to destroy your child, your family, your future, your child's future. He inverts, twists the truth, and he distracts you. And because you are so intelligent and close to God, and you are very close to a breakthrough in the turnaround process, it has to be sophisticated. Here's the deception in this Leucovorin folic acid scam. When children with autism are undermethylated and folate intolerant, this is something that Judy Bauman from Mensa Medical has talked about in another podcast episode. Folate is not appropriate. It is a double agent, methylating in the cytoplasm, but stealing methyl groups from your DNA, which ultimately changes the blueprint and sometimes exposes bad genes. When you're undermethylated and you do a lot of folates, green juices, or any type of folic acid supplement, you increase the risk of infertility, stillbirths, behavioral issues, and autism in children that you give birth to. Can you see the inversion of the truth here? This information is out there. I've been speaking about this and interviewed these experts for about 6 years now. But now you have moms out there thinking, wow, finally someone's acknowledging what's causing autism, and they're telling me about a natural solution for autism, which will then make autism symptoms worse. Yes, it might even increase speech, but then it will make all these other symptoms, the behavior, anxiety, aggression, agitation. The anxiety, by the way, and depression, these children cannot talk about. So they might express it in other ways by stimming or meltdowns or not being able to fall asleep. Can you see how sophisticated this is? Children with autism are undermethylated in 90 to 99% of the time, according to William Walsh. You'll hear from him in a moment. So they are folate intolerant, and their behavioral and mood issues increases when folate in any form is introduced. Let's hear what the expert that has looked into 8,000 cases of autism and undermethylation says about this. William Walsh.
The most surprising findings that I had in my early work with methylation and with mental patients is that we found that undermethylated depressives and anxiety people and those diagnosed with schizophrenia, many of them were terribly intolerant to all forms of folates. It didn't matter whether we gave them folic acid, folinic acid, or N-methylfolate. These undermethylated people would get dramatically worse. They were terribly intolerant. And the question is why? And because we've known for more than 20 or 30 years that undermethylation is usually best treated with folates and B12. So why were these people getting worse? The mystery was finally solved in the year 2000 with the onset and the advanced information from epigenetics. And what we learned is that folates have a dramatic, powerful impact on neurotransmission, especially serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. And folates tend to lower serotonin activity, which is actually the major problem in many people with depression and anxiety. At long last, we understand why patients with serotonin issues or dopamine imbalances, even if they're undermethylated, they're intolerant to folates.
I believe that autism is not genetic in essence, but rather epigenetic in essence. I think it has a lot to do with undermethylation, which is a chemical imbalance that virtually all autism spectrum children have. And if you're undermethylated, it tends to alter epigenetic bookmarking, that is, interaction with genes to determine whether they are suppressed or promoted, turned on or off. It can have a dramatic effect on the child, and it can explain why autism brains are different, and they are different in many different ways. They develop differently, and it can also explain many of the other problems they have, and it also explains why there might be an epidemic of this condition. It's not really genetic, it's epigenetic.
I'll link to these videos in the description for this podcast. Remember that if you are someone with a child on the spectrum, you are probably undermethylated too, which means that if you are taking folate supplements, a lot of greens, and if you don't know how to regulate methylation, by the way, which is something these doctors actually teach inside my program, you will have an increased risk for mental health issues. It also increases the risk for cancer, which is why many of the holistic cancer clinics have stopped using huge green juices and green smoothies by default if they know what they're doing. This is a concept I want you to take in and never forget. Any supplement has the potential to benefit parts of the body and harm other parts of the body down the line. So if a supplement benefits the brain, increases speech, but it changes the DNA, it increases the risk for cancer down the line. It exacerbates anger, aggression, anxiety, tantrums. We need to take into consideration, and nobody's telling you this. We know this with undermethylated children. If they go on a GAPS diet or any of the other autism diets, they often get worse, and moms don't link it to that so-called healthy food or that so-called effective autism supplement or multivitamin. But in reality, you've given something that was great for the gut, but you have made a problem with copper toxicity, GABA to glutamate imbalances, histamine issues, which is also linked to undermethylation, worse. And nobody's going to link bad behavior, anxiety, aggression, rigidity, and tantrums to that so-called healthy food or healthy supplement that the big guys in the industry and politics and all the other moms are raving about. No supplement, no diet is safe for your child unless you know exactly how to monitor for triggers, how to look at your child and know what causes a symptom, when to start a supplement, when to stop it, and all these underlying conditions. That's what I'm passionate about teaching moms to become experts in. The next big problem is the MTHFR myth and misunderstanding. We have huge influencers in the biohacking, functional medicine, autism practitioner, autism recovery field, spreading information that is not correct, telling you to take methylfolate, to take a DNA test, to determine which supplements will be working well for you, or to determine whether your child is a undermethylator or overmethylated. It is not possible. Here's what Dr. Albert Mensa from Mensa Medical in Chicago, one of the leading experts and autism practitioners, say about this.
I want to be very, very clear. I'm going to tell you history around this. You can accept it or not as a population out there. The MTHFR is a misconception. It is not accurate, it is wrong, and it is bad science. How do I know this? The person who began the research on the MTHFR, who came out with the genetic testing, had never heard of methylation before she met my mentor, Dr. William Walsh, PhD, at a conference where he was asked to speak about his expertise in methylation. People hadn't even heard of it before. He had been studying it already for 40 years. He had been working successfully with people in methylation, not using a genetic test, using biochemistry. He told her she was moving in the wrong direction in her research, and she did not listen. And she moved in the wrong direction, came up with the wrong construct, which led to the wrong treatment, which now led to people maybe getting transiently better for 2 or 3 months and then not doing well at all. Step by step by step by step by step, the wrong process, the wrong information. The funny thing is, many of the treatments they're using for undermethylation are actually for the opposite chemistry, over a methyl. And they're wondering why the children aren't getting better. This is a very big issue because there's so many people that are involved in it, that believe in it, and it simply is bad science. Now, please don't get me wrong. This person is a very brilliant person. I respect them tremendously. I know who we're talking about. But the key is that any brilliant person can go down the wrong pathway, okay? Here's the second problem. Genes to begin with. Genes don't tell you who you are. Genes tell you what you might be. The MTHFR test tells you that you have a 30% chance of being this or that. 30%. How many of you are going to go gamble on 30% with your money? You wouldn't do it because it means there's a 70% chance that it's not the problem, okay? DNA is not your destiny. Destiny is not in DNA. Potential is in DNA. Accuracy is in your chemistry. What is going on right now is the proof of what's happening with your system, not the promise of what could happen.
You did not come this far as a rebel to join the masses in the mass hysteria, getting stuck again, losing all the progress that you've made by having discernment. Right now, with these trends, most moms get stuck in 4 different loops. And it looks like either dive into seasons of research and overperformance, trial and error, only to end up bitter and resentful because you don't see any results from all that effort. Or seasons of walking on eggshells, trying to avoid symptoms, the tantrums, eloping, the screaming, the aggression, just fitting your life around autism. Or following moms on Facebook and Instagram, trying all the things that they do and all the things that they say work, all the things that popular doctors say work, minus the results that they brag about, right? Or just running on the hamster wheel. This is not freedom, and you know it. Trying to set your child free, but then just replacing the prison of autism with the prison of autism treatments and protocols, the hamster wheel of that position of hopelessness, endless consultations with experts, tests, detoxes, supplements supposed to be the thing for autism. The truth is completely different. You either hear from God or you are distracted. And there are 5 categories of autism courses that God is trying to take you through to turn you into who He wants you to become. And those 5 categories are also categories in which the enemy can have access to you and destroy your process. These are the real deficiencies that need to be addressed if we want to turn symptoms around and get our child to more independence and get our freedom back. The first deficiency is lack of understanding of God's plan and lack of listening skills when it comes to hearing from God, which means you're super prone to hearing from the enemy and falling for distractions and false healing. We talked about that in previous episodes as well. Your mindset is what creates your reality. What you're thinking changes your heart. The following might be the most important thing I'll ever tell you on this podcast. It's profound, it's biblical, it's scientific, and I've seen this with my own eyes. Proverbs 23:7 says in the King James Version, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he." So what you think is what you become. Proverbs 14:30, remember, a heart at peace gives life to the body. Okay? Now, if you look into the science around the heart and its connection through the vagus nerve to all the major organs in the body, you know that God's truth comes before science. All these mania-driven protocols and negative thoughts around autism symptoms, you create a state in your body via your thoughts and your heart that your child picks up on. Your child mimics what's happening in your nervous system and what's on your heart, which can negatively affect their immune system, detoxification pathways, and gut health. If you don't take anything else from this podcast, take this with you and meditate on those verses. And if you think about symptoms as something that you need to get rid of, you won't receive the escape plan. If you think of symptoms as something you need to kill, bind, destroy, or take a pill for. Every symptom has a message for you, and the message has to do with change. Number 2 is a deficiency in God's design for healing and health. God designed nature, cycles, rhythm, and how we interact in nature as the perfect place for peace, and he created all the foods that's needed for health and healing. We are so detached from that because of all the diets and supplements, completely detached in our indoor treatment-seeking culture. Screens, spellers programs, ABA therapy indoors for hours, going to practitioners, spending time inside, all these things. And then we're taking a pill to distract us from what's actually going on, which is we have to return to God's design for health and peace. Number 3, you have a deficiency in emotional maturity and understanding of how your trauma and unhealed self-sabotage patterns currently prevent you from getting anything from any protocols that you invest in. A child's first bully is an unhealed mother, because when you're stressed and unhealed and you don't know yourself and you have a lot of trauma that hasn't been addressed, you will be resistant to change. You will try to maintain status quo, which is autism, stress, symptoms, and tantrums. And this happens on a subconscious level because you're so scared of change, because change and being seen is something that hurt you deeply. So 90% of all moms who come to me have unhealed trauma wounds, and when they are healed, their children change. Number 4, you need to change the environment that got you sick, the emotional environment and the practical environment, because one of the causes for autism is epigenetic insults. And number 5 is the most misunderstood and mistreated aspect of autism causes and autism turnarounds, which is the bio-individual approach when it comes to tests, supplements, and nutrition. I've said this before, there are 2 practitioners in the world that I personally trust, that I personally have taken my family to, and they do not recommend Leucovorin. They warn against it. And inside my program, they teach how to adjust methylation, how to use food first to balance the gut and return to that optimal design for health and healing, the way that God designed us to eat, live. And we become experts by lived experience so that you can tailor it food first and not waste decades and fortunes on tests that doesn't show you anything and protocols and supplements that does not work for your individual child's needs. It is taxing if you don't understand principles and these distractions. It took me 16 years to get to this level of understanding. The long-term consequence is that you miss the important window of opportunity for change in your child's brain, skills, future, because you miss the window for development gaps to be filled that can lead to less symptoms and more independence. Siblings lose their childhood. They don't have present parents. That happens when parents are in survival mode and on that hamster wheel of constantly trying to deal with symptoms. It's hard on the marriage. If nothing changes, these children are high in the statistics for dangerous behavior, needing full-time supervision, or health or mental health problems. So here's what to do instead. This is what I did. This is what successful moms that work with me do in order to get lasting, nourishing results for their children. And we know that every week and month counts in order to fill the gaps in development. And it's not that we don't address nutrition, neurology, lifestyle, all those things we do, but our strategy, our approach, and our focus is completely different to everything out there. And I want to teach you how to treat this like a craft, a science, something that you learn how to master. It's a language you need to learn in order to interpret symptoms and adjust your approach accordingly, because your child is unique. Your child's needs change all the time. And God is taking you through hard times to reveal His plan. And that's not comfortable. It's not comfortable at all. That is not easy. And that's what we do together in my program. It's really hard to listen to someone you don't trust or don't know. It's hard to understand God's plan if you have trauma and you grew up with distant or cold parents, so that you learned that you had to control everything, you had to lean on your own understanding, you had to earn your right to be loved. Love can be snatched away. So peace is not a natural part of your mindset or your existence, but peace is the path to healing. It says in Romans 8:6, a mind governed by the flesh is death, and a mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. The opposite of peace is dis-ease. If God healed instantly, miraculously right now, you'd probably go on living your life in a very worldly way like we did, chasing people and idols and divination, often without knowing it, because we are so tempted in our soul of all the things that's in this world and instant gratification. But God is trying to teach you something through autism. It is a dark valley that God takes you through. It's no coincidence that God says 600 times in the Bible, remember, I am the God that took you out of Egypt. It is no coincidence that all these treatments and protocols and doctors who play idols or gods in your life takes you back to slavery, just like God's people were tempted back into slavery when God took them out of Egypt through the desert. You are walking through the desert right now. This is where we need community, a strategy, and a plan to stay on that narrow path, especially in a time like this where the distractions and the temptations are insane. Your self-sabotage, trauma patterns, and lack of support stands in the way. Real healing doesn't push or kill or bind or treat. It guides. It is mirrored from a place of peace. Behind every successful client on my podcast, there's a mom who healed herself first. So that's what my framework does. It makes it effortless instead of accidental. You learn how to master the craft of turning symptoms around by lived experience and become the expert instead of chasing experts. Putting in the hours to master the skill of the language of turning symptoms around, putting God first. I want you to treat this as a craft, a science. I want you to treat this as a spiritual journey. Make it predictable, purposeful, instead of accidental. We learn how to understand the symptoms specifically for your child. We learn the language of interpreting symptoms and triggers specifically for your child. You cannot teach your child Italian if you don't speak Italian. If you want to step away from that hamster wheel of holistic healing, tests, supplements, and extreme diets, and you want to know exactly what's triggering your child's symptoms and what to do about them to turn them around and get to more independence in the future, you should hire me now. I'm taking moms through the exact program that I'm describing in this podcast. And DIY solutions tend to take a long time. If you want to connect with me, you can either send me a DM on Instagram, Ninka Bernadette Mauritzson, Barefoot Autism Warriors there, or you can send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, and I'll send you all the details. Until then, take care.